Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tirabhanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Bhalabha Giribharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tirabhanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotarashata Shishimadhi Sevain Graciasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Grantara Shimam Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonum, Chapter 85. Lord Krishna instructs Vasudev and retrieve Devaki's sons. Text 44 and 45. Idam itam iti prajas tava yogeshwareshwara navidantyapi yogesha yogamayam kuto vayam. Idam itam iti prajas tava yogeshwareshwara navidantyapi yogesha yogamayam kuto vayam. Idam itam iti prajas tava yogeshwareshwara navidantyapi yogesha yogamayam kuto vayam. Please chant. idam, this, itam, characterize it like this, iti, in such terms, prajaha, for the most part, tava, your, yoga ishvara, of the masters of yoga, ishvara, O Supreme Master, Navadanti, Navidanti, they do not know, api, even, Yoga Ishaha, the masters of yoga, Yoga Mayam, your spiritual power of delusion, Kutaha, what then of, Vayam, us. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. What to speak of ourselves, O Lord of all perfect yogis? Even the greatest mystics do not know what your spiritual power of delusion is or how it acts. Purport. Systematic understanding of something should include knowledge of both its swarupa or essential identity and also its viseshas, the attributes that make it different from other things. Maya, the energy underlying all material existence, is more subtle than ordinary phenomena. Only God and His liberated devotees, therefore, can know its swarup and vishesha. Text number 45. Translation. Please be merciful to me so I may get out of this blind well of family life, my false home, and find the true shelter at your lotus feet, which selfless sages always seek. Then, either alone or in the company of great saints who are the friends of everyone, I may wander freely, finding life's necessities at the feet of the universally charitable trees. And another verse with purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti states that in response to Bali's prayers, Sri Krishna invited him to choose some benediction. And in this verse, Bali submits his request. Bali begs to be relieved of the entanglement of material life so he will be free to leave home and wander in the wilderness, with only the Lord's lotus feet as his shelter. For his sustenance, Bali proposes that he will take help from the forest trees, at whose feet are fruit to eat and leaves to sleep on, for all to use as needed. And if the Lord is especially merciful to him, Bali hopes, he will not have to wander alone, but will be allowed to travel in the company of Lord Krishna's devotees. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitan Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Ramapada Swamin Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Sutarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So these are two different verses. I don't know why are we putting it together. The they're very in itself, they have very important points to cover, both of them. So we'll try to break it down like that. So the purport of verse 44 have this written with these two very important aspects to understand anything, that want to systematically understand something, we should analyze what is its swarup and what is its visheshas. And that's with anything that we want to understand. So when it comes to understand the absolute truth, so this is a very important um, consideration. What is the swarup and what is the vishesha? And to understand anything in relationship to the absolute truth with all his expansions and energies, everything has these swarup and visheshas. So when we come to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, then to understand its swarup is something, both the swarup and the vishesha. The swarup means what is the essential identity according to this, and vishesha is the attributes that make it different from other things. So there is one verse in the Bhagavatam in which these two things are perfectly clarified. And this is considered the essential verse of the Bhagavatam. I can remember right now, I have a blank in my head. I can remember the Sanskrit term. I think it's paribhasha, paribhasha something. Is the essential verse. It's the verse that explains the whole philosophy that is presented in the Bhagavatam. And that verse is Ete Chamsa Kalapunsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. By that expression, the whole understanding of the Bhagavatam is settled. And in that verse, both the Swarup, the essential constitution of the absolute truth, is defined as Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan, is the origin, is the source of everything. And then the Vishesha of Lord Krishna is that everything else, all the different incarnations, all the different, everything that is there is simply an expansion or an expansion of his expansions. So that is perfectly established. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also established that, which is also considered the essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita, the Chatur Sloki, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, that he is the source. He is the source. And when it comes to is a consistent explanation in the prayers of all the great personalities that are narrated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is a consistent presentation of acknowledging and glorifying Krishna's Swarup and Vishesha. Lord Brahma, Ishvara Parama Krishna, dasa Vishesha, and is also a Swarup. Ishvara, what makes it different of everybody else? Ishvara Parama. There are many Ishwaras, but here's a Parama. Here's a Supreme. And what is the constitution of that Supreme? That he has a rupa, eh, Ishvara Paramakrishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha. The Vigraha is a form, which is also another one of the translation of Rupa. Rupa, Swarupa. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that that form is transcendental. In this fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, tells Arjuna that when he comes to this world, Srijamyaham, he descends in his own transcendental form. Transcendental form, that the idea of misinformed jnanis and so-called transcendentalists that have a very poor understanding of the absolute truth, that when Krishna appears in this world, he takes a material form, is refuted in the presentations of by Krishna himself and the presentation of the great devotees that include all the great personalities of the world, of the universe. Krishna is transcendental. So, to understand that, if one comes to fully understand these principles, this Swarup and this Vishesha of the personality of Godhead, then he is achieved liberation. What is it? Jamma karma chame divyam evan yovedi tattvataha. To understand in tattva, in truth, the appearance and the pastimes of the Lord, then one is ready for liberation. And to understand that, there is only one way. There's no other way. It's singular. It's only by bhakti. Not by yoga, not by jnana, not by karma, not by anything or combinations of anything. It's only by bhakti that one can understand this transcendental truth. So, here Bali Maharaj is just marveling at the fact that these sometimes our acharyas define this knowledge as what is the word that they use? Um, self-evident. Self-evident. That if you take a very close look, you can actually come to the conclusions that there's a supreme controller. But also, it's self-evident, it becomes baffling. There is something that happens, that there is a power that causes this delusion that the living entity tries to almost, you don't want to see what is self-evident, and then embrace this idea that you're supreme and you're you're the enjoyer of everything that is there. And because of that idea that is called ahamkara, the false ego, then you become bewildered. Now, that's understandable for regular people, but when you talk about powerful yogis and transcendentalists, that they are also a mystic, that they also bewilder. Personalities throughout the universe. And specifically, yesterday we heard about the demigods. The demigods are the most powerful beings in the whole universe. But they all, they usually, because of the enjoying of opulences, they become quite vulnerable to this delusion and they forget. And we see how it happens constantly in the narrations of Krishna's pastime, how demigods are in the Bhagavatam over and over, how the demigods uh, makes all kinds of mistakes constantly. One that we heard uh, is the position of Lord Indra. Now, Lord Indra is opposed. It's not just the one Indra constantly making mistakes, but there's different Indras, and there's the Bhagavatam have this thing that because we have a cyclical type of uh, historical events, then sometimes you narrate, an Indra in a particular kalpa and another Indra in a particular kalpa, and like that. But the position itself is so vulnerable to make mistakes. So there is not clear that it was the same Indra that after doing the mistake of offending Krishna and trying to destroy Vrindavan with the rain, the clouds of devastation, of the disillusion, not the illusion, disillusion. Then a little later, he went to fight Krishna when Krishna was taking the Parijata tree for Satyabhama. Not so long ago, I mean, several years, you were completely chastised and you realized that the great offense that you made and you surrendered to Krishna. And, he did the Abhishek and the whole thing, Govinda Kun, and the glorification of Krishna is there. And then much later, you come again and do the same thing, trying to fight Krishna like that. So how has this happened? How is it possible? So it's puzzling. So then you can only see the incredible supreme power of this delusion of Maya, this powerful energy of the Lord. So to understand the swarup of the energies of the Lord is almost impossible. What to speak of to understand the Lord, who is the source of that energy? No chance. Therefore, Krishna described Even with Maya, his external energy is Duratyaya, is very difficult to overcome. Basically, Duratyaya is, Prabhupada translates difficult to overcome, but Duratyaya is analyzed in a lineage of acharyas as basically impossible. So the only way to overcome or to be able to not only overcome but to understand the essential, the swarup and the vishesha of Krishna's energy, specifically here, is about Maya, the power, the material energy, the illusion. Maya have these two potencies, the potency of creating the illusion and the potency of throwing you out into, illusion too. So both things. So Maharaj Bali, what chance we have, even the demigods, even the great sages and perfect yogis, they can, they don't understand. So what to speak of our, selves? In this case, he's presenting himself as a demon, you know, what chance do we have? Only the devotees and Krishna. Krishna and the devotees are the only one who can understand the Swarup and the Vishesha of Krishna's energy. When Lord Brahma received the darshan of Krishna in the Brahma Kalpa, the first Kalpa, that Brahma was, after performing meditation for 1,000 celestial years, then the Lord, being pleased, then he allowed Lord Brahma to have a full darshan, not only of himself, but also of the whole spiritual world. And when he had that darshan, then the Lord has been attended, in his residence. He was surrounded by these effulgent beings, all just as beautiful as the Lord, and also decorated like the Lord, 4 arms too. And they were both male and female. The females, um, also were expansions of Srimati Lakshmi Devi. So they were surrounded, Lord Vishnu was surrounded like that. And then Lord Brahma, he wanted to understand from the Lord how he can perform his service of creation. And he also wanted to understand, or at least understand what to do, so while performing his service, in which he had to be in very close, he had to be in the mode of passion, and he had to deal with the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. But to build, you have to be in the mode of passion. He didn't want to be affected by that and become forgetfulness and being able to be also afflicted by delusion and forget the Lord. So he wanted to know what to do. And so Lord Vishnu then instructed Lord Brahma, first of all, in the matter of creation, he have to understand the Swarup and the Vishesha of everything. So then he introduced all the 24 elements in their spiritual um, form to Lord Brahma. Each by each one of them. So the first five came forward in their spiritual form. Um, the five senses, the personification of the five senses, and then the personification of the five objects, and then the personification of the five working senses, and then the personification. Oh, before that, before getting into the 24 element, the 20 element, I can remember. 5 is 5, and I think 23 or 22 elements or something like that. Before that, he introduced Maya, his material energy. And it is explained it was a beautiful female form. And she was standing behind the Lord. So he introduced Lord Brahma. So here's my external energy, Prakriti. And then please introduce yourself. So she introduced herself to Lord Brahma. And exquisitely beautiful, but she was standing behind the Lord, and she was, face cast down, sort of ashamed in one sense, when the Lord explained what her function is, what is her Vishesha, is that she causes all the living entities of the world to fall into ignorance and forget about him. That's her task. And she felt, it's a very hard task. So she was, when just to have to take care of that caused her to feel, be in the back and sort of cast down like that. And then Lord Vishnu introduced, and here is my internal potency, Lakshmi. And she was fanning the Lord by his lotus feet, and she facilitates all the living entities to um, engage in devotional service. And now, the both forms, so Prakriti was a mirror, is like an image, the same image of Lakshmi Devi. But it's like a reflection of Lakshmi Devi. And then Lord Brahma asks, so if Prakriti is a reflection, if your external energy is a reflection of your internal energy, so what is a mirror? And the mirror is the desire of the living entity. So when the living entity desires to be apart from Krishna, that becomes the mirror that reflects. So you now are seeing that reflection of the internal potency, and then have to deal with the external potency. So what I'm saying, and then the Lord introduced all these different energies, and each one of them has a particular swarup and has a particular vishesha. And Lord Brahma was able to understand perfectly each one of them, because the Lord who is the source of everything, instructed him. And with full understanding, oh, and then the Lord answered the question to Lord Brahma of how he can perform his service and be protected from falling down. And then he said, for that, I will narrate to you the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he instructed the Lord Brahma. So simply by hearing constantly, hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, which is the subject of the Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam is that, is the knowledge, again, of the glories of the Lord, exclusively about Krishna. It's about Krishna. That is the means to be able to perform in this material world. You, whatever you do, you go along with hearing and chanting the Bhagavatam. You do that, you be protected. Now, you take this knowledge and you pass it down in the cyclic succession. So Lord Brahma did that. He explained the same to Narada, and Narada explained the same to Vyasadeva, the Bhagavatam, and also the understanding of not only Krishna's Swarup and Vishesha, but also of his energies. And then we hear when Vyasadeva was meditating, when in the perfection of his meditation, what did he see? The Lord along with his energies. So he is able to understand. So by the grace of this descendant knowledge, the knowledge of the Bhagavatam, we're able to understand these things. We're able to understand. So it's not only important to understand the Swarup and the Vishesha of the Supreme Lord, of his energies, his Prakriti, his internal energy and his external energy, but it's also very important to understand my Swarup as a living entity and my Vishesha. And this is something that Lord Chaitanya explained. I read. This is disappear. Give me a second. Okay, this is in a purport. It's not Srila Prabhupada, it's the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. But it's explained. When the word Swarup is applied to us, it especially indicates our spiritual form, because our own form is in fact our own condition, character, and nature eternally. Thus, the liberated condition in which one's outward form is one deepest spiritual nature called Swarup. Primarily, however, this term refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. This all indicates in this verse by the words Tavat Dhamma, as explained by Sridhar Swami. So we also have the whole thing of self realization, the whole path of a devotional service is to uncover our swarup. And that's called, the term that is used is Siddha Swarup. At one point, we're going to understand in the process of Krishna consciousness what is my eternal relationship with Krishna. So it's something that we have to, look forward to do that. It's more that is in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada explains something like that. Yeah. Yes. Prabhupada explaining about the five different rasas, no? And then he say Arjuna was in a relationship with the Lord as a friend. Of course, there is a gulf of difference between this friendship and the friendship found in the material world. This is transcendental friendship which cannot be had by everyone. Of course, everyone has a particular relationship with the Lord, and that relationship is evoked by the perfection of devotional service. But in the present status of our life, not only have we forgotten the Supreme Lord, but we have forgotten our eternal relationship with the Lord. Every living being out of many, many billions and trillions of living beings has a particular relationship with the Lord eternally. This is called Swarup. By the process of devotional service, one can revive that Swarup. And that stage is called Swarup Siddhi, perfection of one's constitutional position. So Arjuna was a devotee and he was in touch with the Supreme Lord in friendship. So we can, just like Bali Maharaj in the next verse, naturally, the Lord wanted to give him a benediction, and the benediction that he asked was to be in the position in which he can fully absorb himself in the process of hearing and chanting, in the association of pure devotees, and being able, because in that association you can very easily fully understand these necessary principles of knowledge, the what is called self-realization. So fully understand the Lord and your eternal relationship with the Lord. I stop here. Any comments or questions? Yeah. Yeah, there is. I have to say that this is subject matters that are over my head. But one of the things that I recall is that there's different perfected beings. There are the Nitya Siddhas. There is uh, there is the what's it? All the term Nitya Siddhas, Kripa Siddhas, and Sadhana Siddhas. Yes, the Nitya Badas are just the eternally just the conditioned souls like that. So the Nitya Siddhas are different, like Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, Vaishnava Acharyas mostly are Nitya Siddhas. They're, most of them, they were from their assistants of the some of the main gopis, like um, like Srila Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari. So they're Manjari gopis who are the assistants of the main gopis, the eight, the Ashtasakis. So they're eternal associates of the Lord that for the purpose of assisting the Lord in um, helping the conditioned souls, they come. So they're different. So now for the Kripa Siddhas and the Sadhana Siddhas, that's where we, fall if we come to that stage of perfection. Then it's explained that at one point, through the process of devotional service under the guidance of a your spiritual master, then it will be at one point understood by Lord Chaitanya's grace what, when you start to enter into the levels of Raganuga Bhakti, then at one point you take shelter, you start to do this internal meditation in which you take shelter of a particular uh, personality associate of the Lord in a particular type of rasa, and that through that meditation it becomes revealed what is your swarup. And then for the sadhana siddhis and and kripa siddhis, you go into wherever Krishna is performing his pastimes in the material world, and it's like a preliminary thing. It's like if you graduate in medicine and you go to a hospital to do some sort of intern. I can't remember how they call it, but internship type of thing. And then you further get trained, and then you go back home, back to work after that. But again, don't take me fully. You know I'm explaining that with with a little asterisk note, but yeah, I think important for us, at least most of us, is to start to embrace because Lord Chaitanya gave us the essential nature of our identity, regardless. Is Gopi Bhartar Kama Padalayor, what is it? And dasa anudas. That's our identity. So that means our swarup. That's the definition of swarup. So if we embrace that, then that's how it's going to all be fully revealed. And then to go to that, to understand that position, we have to go deeper and deeper and deeper in the relationship with our spiritual master. Because in the relationship with the spiritual master is when all these things comes together. In terms of it's like it's almost you know the spiritual master is an extension of Krishna from within the heart, and expands as a spiritual master. So the spiritual master, the worship of the spiritual master is, in one sense, for the disciple on the same level on the worship of Krishna, from the perspective of as Krishna's representative. So it's as good shaksha daritwena chamasta chaste. So to have that sort of identity that you're almost one in identity, not in an impersonal way, but in terms of the desires of your spiritual master is your identity, like that. To serve the desires and the orders of your spiritual master, that's your identity. That's your swarup, which, from there you start to go further and further in understanding Krishna. That's my realization. Any other question? Thank you. Well, what is called self-evident truth is the that it appears in the specifically in the dasa mula of the nine truth that is explained by Madhavacharya, and then in terms Lord Chaitanya explained it as a dasa mula, and they are. One is that there is a supreme self-evident, there is a supreme being, and then I cannot tell you. I mean, it's off my head, so I cannot tell you all. But you can look for it. Then that the Lord is different from His energies. That's another one. That the living entity is um, what is it? Something about the living entity, to understand the position of the living entity, and that the living entity is bewildered by the material energy, that the path of liberation is bhakti, devotional service, pure devotional service. And like that, there's several, there's all these 9 self-evident truths. And which means if you get some education, you go and say, yeah, we, it's like it, I don't know, we all have that experience that you say, yeah, it just makes perfect sense that there's a supreme being and a supreme controller. And it makes sense that it's a very loving personality. And it makes sense that if he's God, why he have to be wrinkled and old? It must be the most beautiful, attractive personality, charming and everything. Everything makes sense. It's like self-evident when you start to talk about it. And, that I'm not God, duh. I mean, that's most self-evident. Like, if I'm God, what the heck am I doing here? Type of thing. So all these are self-evident truth. You know. Yeah. Yeah, they have they just by observation you can, there's certain things that, yes, I mean, the living entity is Ananda Maya Vyasat. So that's a truth that is there. But if you have, it's like putting an equation, and if you have the two first numbers wrong, then the rest is finished, even if you have it right. So, um, yeah, without understanding of Krishna and Krishna's energies, that's without that understanding, is everything is finished. You're in delusion. And for someone in knowledge who's able to see the thing, it's like, oh wow, this is quite something. The potency of this material delusion, is quite something. That's what Bali Maharaj is. And then basically, when it comes to a benediction, which was an expert, which would have been nice to have the speaker discuss it tomorrow, because it's a nice meditation too. Naturally, I would like to be helped and free or protected from this delusion. And you know he there was certain natural means that he is explaining there in his statement. It's okay. Krishna Arjun, you have something? Okay. Thank you so much. Grantara Shiman Bhagavatam ki jai.